kind of clean it up here. So let's create another one. Let's create a 2000 and I don't know, let's say it's 2020. Oop. Status is actual. Kind of stick with the same. What was it? Yeah, 20. Let's do. And these will be serials as well. I'll just go out 30 years. This is all, actual debt. This is all information that you'll have that you'll be able to hard code in. Let's see, 26 to and again, you would know what the issue amounts happen to be. Um, I'm going to just kind of keep it the same instead of just randomly putting in. But let's say it's at, say it's something like that. And then again, 10 years out. So at par. So this will be information that you can hard code in, actual series, debt, existing debt. And now, if you don't have this information, it's just cash flows. That's obviously you can't create it like this. You'll have to kind of create it as cash flow that's applied to savings in the escrow. But that's within the refund case. And we'll get to that in a second here. Okay. So just remember, not only do you create the call table, this goes for any series, you have to also link it. So just creating it, because you can create as many call tables as you want. You have to also, it's a two-step process. The second step is linking. But there's also area in refund case where you can do, or you can set up a earliest allowable call date that will override. And again, I can kind of show you that as well. Let's see. So we have the actual series. Now, what we want to create is our 2000 refund case. Yep. You'll notice the different icon. Now you'll start to notice, let me get out of that, a little different setup here, right? It's no longer says debt size assumptions and then create the bonds and then the project fund, your cap buy. So how this is set up is first refund assumptions, general escrow parameters. Is this a slugs? Is this an open market? Is it, you can make that selection. By default, more times than not, slugs is the type of securities that you're going to use. Okay. Now, how do you use, when I click on current, there's nothing there. So I'm not linked to any kind of slug files that I've already downloaded. This SCCS button, Security Universe, this is where you can download historical or current, and it'll tell you it's been installed to, and then put it in this. Now, if I wanted to, tools, preferences, this is where you can link, if you want to create a folder, and you can have it automatically download. And there you can. Open markets, you or someone at your firm will need to have the download name and password. If you're able to download, you can always email us and say, hey, I need to be able to access and download open markets. You get I believe it's 60 per, I think it's per year. So unlike slugs, each branch office is allowed a certain amount of downloads per year. Whereas slugs, you can just it's unlimited. It's not going to cost you anything. So in the refund case, you'll notice when we created this refund case, you'll see the same short name, proposed refunding, is also created. It assumes by default when you create a refund case that you want the program to also automatically produce and link a proposed refunding series. Okay, so let me just make sure. So 2015 goes to 55 and 50. Okay, so I double click, go into the refunding series. This is where our new assumptions, right? This is where we're going to create them, our new bonds. But this is not, say, a cash defeasance where you're not issuing any new bonds, but let's, for this purposes, we are. Issuance expense. If you do have any cap I, if you do have it, this is all your new proposed assumptions that we're going to set up here. 6-1, we're just going to stick with the same theme. And I'm going to create obviously, if you had cap terms, cap serials, convertible caps, you create those. But this is, we're just going to create serial bonds. And we will 6/1/25 to 6/1/55. Let's just say it starts at 1. It's something like this. This is our new assumptions. We've already created an issuance expense, so we can just add that. Again, these are all new assumptions. This is the proposed refunding. So we're hopefully going to defease the 15s and the 20s and produce some kind of a savings output. Obviously, the vast difference of the new coupons versus the old, we should do that. Okay. So this is back in the refund case. Now, how do we pull in the refunded debt? Prior debts detail, click create. This is where we can select the 15s and the 20s. Now, you may go, what if I want to do certain amounts? Well, again, we can go in here and you can type in the amounts. That's a pretty big task, or can be. But let's say you go, I don't want to defease 100%. I want to do 80%. Let's say across the board. How do I do that? You select your bonds, then you go to input bonds, click on the ... import. And it'll ask you, do you want to override your set? Yes. Now you'll notice all the bonds that we imported, the 15s, and then the 20s. And you can select specific maturities. If you across the board want to modify and you say, I want to, I want to refund 80% times 0.80, you'll see the change. You'll see what the full amount at 142.5, 142.5 million. 80% of that is 114. Let's go back to select. Let's do all the bonds. Before we get into this advance, I would say the only difference are we have an earliest allowable call date. So even if you hard code in or not, you can go in here. Now, the thing is, it's across the board. It's, you'd have to separate out two different escrows, the 15s and 20s, if you had different objectives. But if you pretty much set it up correctly in each actual series, you probably won't need to do this. Funds on hand, you may have a prior reserve, you may have set asides, you may have some kind of contribution. The only thing that really transfers automatically are prior expenses, like a subsidy expense, for example. And but if there's no point in really setting up a prior reserve fund because that cannot automatically be transferred over. How would you do that? Well, you could say, a 2015 reserve. Let's say the amount is in, let's say it's 100,000, and let's say you want to purchase slugs. You want to, purchase first slugs for this 100,000, and then the rest will fill with bond proceeds. Well, you can type in some kind of a spend remaining in escrow name. So how do we want to solve? And again, F1, really get down into details. This might be a little more advanced than we usually go over in the basic class, but get quite a bit of, hey, I've got this transfer, I've got this amount. How do I set it up, and how do I, have a part of the escrow, and this will also reduce, bond proceeds and so forth. So this is how you would do it. This overrides anytime in here, even if you don't have funds on hand. If you just came in here and gave it an escrow name, any blue that's in this area that you hard code in will override general bond proceeds escrow. So if you add additional cash here, you may get a warning, or you have a different yield. You may have ARB yield, but or NA, it's non-restricted, and it may different than be in the escrows. Anything entered in that escrows tabs will override any inputs here, and you'll get a warning message saying that this is not a global proceeds escrow because you decided to set up your escrow in this area. Savings assumptions, more times than not, if you want to include or exclude something, you may have a reserve fund. This might be part of a project finance, and you may go, hey, my new reserve fund, I want to show it as a cash flow. Well, it's not up front. You make that change. Or you have future expenses I don't want to include. The savings assumptions aren't always in line with how you're telling the program how to solve it. Okay, because you can really manipulate the savings by, you can add in cash flow adjustments. Well, you need to make sure and do it on the solution side as well, and we'll get to that. Portfolios, a lot of times this is if you want to hard code in a portfolio, you can do it through here. Reporting options, kind of the same thing. Footnotes, alternate text, additional titles. Finally, at the end, I would say more times than not, you're going to want to have some kind of maybe level savings. Not always, but that's uniform. And again, you remember, except for the fill example of the 8 million a year, in a refund case, and you'll see the little R, the revenues by default, now you'll notice something different, include prior debt service. Yes. Obviously, if you come in here and you add some kind of a source of revenue constraints and you keep that on yes, it will add to it. It won't exclude. You'd have to select no if you want to only use some kind of a cash flow revenue constraint stream that you want to enter. But again, there's an FAQ under the refund about, how to set up, whether it's net, solution, and savings, because everyone knows what the savings report means. Unfortunately, it's kind of like net debt service. It includes everything, but it doesn't show how it's solved. So this is kind of just a basic setup, not so basic with the funds on hand being applied, but you'll see one or more refunded bonds mature on. That's fine. Remember the 15 and 20, we had maturities that we entered in that fell on or prior to 6/1/2024. Escrow purchase date falls on a weekend or holiday. That's global proceeds is not used when all requirements are met by escrow and prior debt. Yeah. Let's see. Do the prior debt, unrefunded escrow requirements. I'm trying to get some of the newer reports. These are proceeds. Let's see. Let me just look at these for the time being. Okay, table of contents. We've seen that. A little different now. We have this reserve, the 100,000 included. It's other source. We have the slugs. Cost of issuance. Okay, looks good. This is a summary of the refunding results. Obviously, given the pretty big difference in coupons from the actual series to the new, we'll see a large savings of the refunding doing this. Also, the average life of the refunded versus the refunding looks good. Summary of bonds refunded. See, this is showing you breakout of the, oh yeah, I guess I did do it 6/15/05. That's fine. And then 6/1/30. Now, let me just modify this back to annual. And if it works, if it's solved and set up correctly, then you're going to see this level savings, and it's great, right? And but again, especially when you start refunding bonds, you'll have sometimes pretty dramatic differences, and you may refund, say 50 million in one year and 1 million in another, and then you're going to try to get level savings. That might not be possible. So again, the savings is just going to show you the prior refunding, the savings, the NPV savings, whereas the solution, bond solution, will show, given these revenue constraints, here's our new debt issued, here's the difference, that's the savings, and it's all within a bond. So if it works, probably don't need to view the bond solution, but a lot of times it may not, because you may have revenue constraints of 40, 50 million in certain years, a million, and you'll go, that's why I can't I can't produce level savings in every year. Whereas a savings report is it just spits it out. Escrow requirements, obviously the bonds that mature prior to the call dates. And then you'll see the calls 6/15/25 and 6/1/30. Escrow deposits. Now, a lot of times you'll look at this and you'll go, this is great. I see this, but I need to see what securities were purchased for the 2015, that prior reserve release. And again, these reports in are in aggregate unless you modify them, right? And I'll show you this is very sufficient within a bond, a lot lower than $1, very little cost of dead time, looks great. But you'll probably want to modify to alt detail. I'll do it to the first so we can just see it first. Now you'll see broken out. So you modify, in this case, the escrow cost report to alt detail. You'll see the purchase of the slug, right? It was 100,000. And you'll also see the yields at the bottom broken out if need be. Mm-hmm. So we also have, and I don't know if you do this, sensitivity analysis. So you could set up a refund and then you go, okay, but what if bond yields change by a certain percent plus or minus, and or escrow yields change plus or minus, do I need to make copies of this refund case, make 5, 10 different copies, and then have to try to, make those changes? And then we have something called Calc Agent, which you can go to File, Calc Agent. So you can, let's just say this is the base case. But you can come in here and, minus point, 10, minus point, 20 or whatever. Or you can do a quarter or, in quarters, whatever the, and you may not have adjustments on both, but this is like plus, these are the positives. And you can say minus 0.2, you can do by VP, stuff like that. But I just wanted to at least kind of show you for sensitivity analysis wise, be calculated. And you can start breaking down most times you're going to want to view the reports, breakdown, if possible, style. I'm just going to show you a few reports. The summary will show you. So right now we have net PV savings of 22 million and change. Obviously, we have some kind of a coupon and escrow offset, right? The greater reduction, the higher the PV savings, and then vice versa. So you'll know, hey, if coupons change by 0.10% or 0.2%, or that they get reduced. Here's kind of in general what the results will be. This is broken out, and I can make that. This is the base case, and these are the negatives, and these are the positives. So anything that you can modify to breakdown style, you can have it all show in one report. Now, savings. So this is showing you -2. You can have an even more explanation than that. I just wanted to just kind of show you with the reduction in coupon and escrow. You'll see the 987, 980,000, 987,000 in savings. Then it goes to 939. If it's right now, it's 892. If coupons go up, your new debt, same with the escrow goes up, then you'll see it start to reduce. Plus 0.1 goes to 840, and then 795. So I don't know if that's something that is useful. Sensitivity analysis, you can also do this for reporting purposes. What's great about it is when you click open, you will see a calc agent, and it's been saved. So you save it, then that's great. You don't have to keep, I think a lot of times the other is doing batch runs, but that's something that you have to kind of keep doing. So the refund is, again, it's, if you just kind of think of it as, okay, just create the actual series. But if you don't have the actual series, and this happens sometimes, then you'll have to go in and enter in cash flows. Okay. So if you just say, look, I don't have 15, I don't have 20, I've got the requirements, for my escrow, and you'll probably want a copy to show on your savings. Then you don't select anything and you do a cash flow. Now, you're going to have some issues in your summary of refunding results. It's not going to give you a lot of output because it's not treating this is just a cash flow. This is not being treated as some kind of an actual refunded bond. But we do get on occasions that, hey, I'm trying to achieve a certain amount of interest on this day. How can I modify it? Well, you may have selected the bonds, and you may want to add or subtract interest, but you'll notice this is kind of broken up into two parts. This is the escrow part, and this is for savings. Not used, not as often. That's why it's typically don't typically go over it too much. But as you can see, if you've got, you create the actual series, all you have to do is just create the refund case. It will create a proposed refunding shell, and you can go into it, and that will set up your new information, and then you run everything through the refund case. And something we'll go over more in the advanced is, can I purchase slugs or securities for Cap I, for project funds? What you basically have to do is create other formula. So let's say it's, let's say Cap I. What you basically have to do is this. It's, you have to create what we call like a dummy refund, because you're not going to defease any bonds. And we'll get this sometimes, we'll get hey, I have a Cap I, how can I purchase, slugs in my proposed series. Well, there's no escrow information in the new series, so you have to set up a dummy refund. And then what you have to do is you have to select, or you have to create this cap I. You can say bond interest accrued, and it can be, 5/1/25. And then in the refund, you would select cap I. Oh, didn't work. Oh, level. So the escrow cost, let's see, sources, savings. Here's the requirements. So that's the cap I. That's bond interest accrued through that 5/1/25 amount. And here's the slugs you would purchase for it. So that's a little different setup. Um, and again, that's not, uh, as common and typically that we would go over in a kind of a basic class, but that's just kind of showing you. Now, if you're like, yeah, but I also need the cap I to show up in the reserve, the net debt service report, you'd create it up here. And then um, you can unselect include initial cost and uses of funds so you don't double count, because your escrow is going to be um, um, let's see, because you got your purchases here, and that's going to be, you don't want to double count it. So as you can see, it can get, if you want, depending on where you want the cap I, if you want it to also show up in in the net debt service report, that's fine. You just uncheck that, include initial issuance costs, so you don't double count on the sources and uses. But in terms of a straight up refund, um, and this is where you can kind of toggle if you need to make changes. Again, you're going to create the actual series, create the refund case. In the refund case, go in the proposed refunding, put in your new information, your proposed bond information, issuance cost, any kind of funds, stuff like that. Back in the refund, you're going to, if it's something other than slugs, you're going to make that selection, create prior to defease to select the actual series. And at the end, how do we want to solve? And that's for level savings. So it's really not, it's just because you're going to have to most likely create actual series, but once that's created, it's really no more difficult than just a standard debt size that we've gone over. Well, everyone good so far? Let's see, 12:30. Oh, okay, let everyone know being recorded. Okay, let everyone know to be recorded. Transcribe. Okay. Let's see. Turn camera, mic. Let's see. So we've gone over the different debt size modules or examples, as well as a setting up just a, how to refund, um, with a few maybe not so common nuances thrown in. And I think we've pretty much gone over everything. If anyone has any specific questions, more than welcome to ask. If not, and if you haven't, we have a project finance training set up. That's in a couple of weeks uh, from today, I believe. Let me just check. It's actually on the 18th. So it's almost 2 weeks from today. It's on Tuesday. So, but this actually covered, yeah, it usually they go from anywhere from 2.5. It's rare that we've had a 3.5 hour one. Just because also there's only so much information you can kind of absorb and follow along. And but the main thing is all this, well, not all of it, but I would say the majority is covered in our tutorials, which I highly advise going through the actual uh, meat and stuff that you're going to have to hard code or set up. It's really not a lot compared to, uh, again, don't let the number of pages, scare you off. A lot of those are reports and whatnot. So, okay. So, unless anyone has something specific, I think we can wrap this up, and you guys can have a in time for a lunch, and it's not too late. So I hope everyone got something out of this, and I'm assuming. Let me see. You all 16 are in the meeting. Okay. Oh, wow, we had 16 people. Let's see. I'm trying to unmute. Let's see. Oh,
I think we're able to
Hey,
do it
Kate.
individually, but thank you.
yes. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, just wanted to
Yes.
say thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm glad the turnout, that's always a worry. A lot of people go, when's your training going to happen? And we set it up, and all these people want to be trained. And then, we start it, and there's, maybe 10% of the people that sometimes sign up, but we had a big one this time, 16 people. So that's great. I would, yeah, definitely go through this. I'll try to see on our end about setting this video up and shooting it out to anyone that wants it. And I don't think what else. But yeah, I think it's like anything. You can watch someone do it, and until you do it, uh, you know that's when you're going to really start to excel, the more you use the program. And before you know it, it'll be like anything else. It'll be easy. So I hope you guys have a great day, and And definitely, if you have project finance and you think within a couple of weeks it'll be useful, and you haven't yet, please, sign up for that as well. I'll be going over that. That class typically is not as long as well because we don't spend a ton of time in debt size and refunding. That's kind of assumed. And we spend some time, um, but um, but yeah. So thanks for everyone coming out, and have a good day, have a good lunch, and if I see you in a couple of weeks, great.
Thank you
Thanks
for your
again,
time.
Kate. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Take care.